We're here today for our first Flexibility Matters Work Ready seminar. We've run these for the past 2 years to support our candidates to literally be work ready when we find great jobs, to support, nurture, mentor, hold your hands through the whole getting back to work process. Now, some of you will have literally just stopped a job and be on to your next challenge. Some of you might have been furloughed, some might have been made redundant, some might be taking a career break, some might be changing directions. There's all sorts of reasons why you might have come to our books for flexible working. And we want to hear from you. So without further ado, Simon Rickman is our business coach today, and his company is called Peak Performance. And Simon's done one of these Work Ready seminars with us before, and we thought that actually it was such a great event, the previous one, that we'd like to have Simon back again to do a repeat performance with a new cohort of attendees. And Simon is a business coach of many years, very experienced, previously as a consultant for Accenture, and has run his own coaching consultancy for about 20 years, I think, Simon, is that right?
Yeah, on and off.
On and off.
Years, but yeah, I've been working in places like Accenture, American Express, Waitrose, all sorts of places in a corporate capacity, but also, and it's always been either in HR recruitment.
Lovely. So the reason that we've got Simon here today is to use the framework of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of effective people and give it a good HR spin on how to get those habits embedded in your job search. So Simon, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Move you all up there. So if I look up here, it's because you're sat on a monitor behind. If I stare into the camera, you can then see me there. So I'm just gonna move you there. Right. Can everybody see the slide, Essential Habits to Secure Your Dream Job? As you're all on mute, and actually I can only see Emma, so that's absolutely fine. Yes. Emma, thank you. That's brilliant. And thank you, Emma, for the opportunity to do this again. As we were saying, it is something I have spent my life doing, trying to find the dream. Actually, it is about trying to find the dream job. I have my dream job now, which is helping people to be more successful. Either it's as a leader, manager, supervisor, as an individual executive, it doesn't really matter. The job, helping people to find jobs. Well, I've been recruiting since 1983. I know I don't look old enough, but I have. And therefore, this was a very natural thing for me to do. And I was saying to Emma when we were having a chat before we came on air, the last 2 years have been incredibly difficult for everybody. And it's been incredibly difficult for me. I lost all of my pipeline of work on the 23rd of March, 2020. And so I started to put these webinars together. And the 7 habits came very naturally to me. It was something that I first read back in 1997. I was not in a great place from a career perspective. And we happened to be in America, happened to be California, just in terms of context. And I read the book because it was a massive seller. It's actually sold over 40 million now. But I felt he was talking to me, and I felt those habits are absolutely crucial for me to be more effective myself. And then I started to use them with my teams, and that helped them to be more effective. And that's why I look at them. And so we're coming up to 2 years of this pandemic, and it has, as we know, affected us in so many different ways. I remember right at the beginning, I was doing my first webinar was the 7 habits to work from home effectively, because that's what we needed to do. And I remember people were saying, well, we're all in the same boat. And I said, actually, no, we're not. We're all in the same sea, but we're in our different boats. And Emma's already said it's affected us in different ways. I run my own business now, and so I managed to put myself on furlough because as I have a limited company, I didn't get any support from the government apart from a loan. And we now just heard that, billions have been, fraudulently taken out in loans. I took out the loan, didn't spend a penny, and paid it back straight away. But I was on furlough. I've had to pivot what I was doing because again, Emma and I were talking, we were going in and talking to our customers and clients, and then we had to talk to them electronically, and then I had to find a way of putting things online. Those who weren't on furlough, we realised were actually suffering from burnout. So they were working so hard because they had people who weren't working, but they had to pick up the work of people who were on furlough. Some of us have lost our jobs and had lots of different changes. And so it's a good opportunity, particularly, we know January, New Year, there's 2 times in the year this happens for me. Once in September, when we all used to go back to school, it was that refreshness after the summer holidays. And the other one is in January, when we think about the newness, the refresher, the reminder, reflector, whatever it is. And so, look, I appreciate, because I saw you with great respect. You are not are very unlikely to be first in your jobs. You've had experience of this before. So all I want to do is kind of give you a refresher and a reminder. And some of these things you will have heard before. Some of the things maybe you haven't. And some of it might be, I'm glad he said that, because I knew I had to do that, but I hadn't been doing it. But at the end of the day, it's got to be about results. It's about trying to find the dream job. We've already talked about the participation, so I'm going to skip through these. I'm going to ask you to participate through some reactions, completely and utterly voluntary. Emma, as unfortunately I can't see everybody now, if you can give me the feedback on that. It's a bit of fun. It's no more scientific. And the important thing about a reaction is don't only look at your own reaction, but look at the reactions of people around you, because the probability is that not everybody is going to feel the same way. It's back to that, we're all in the same sea, but not in the same boat. And as Emma said, if you've got questions, I try and make these as informal as I can. Just stop and ask a question. I might say, I will always say it's a brilliant question, because it will be, but I'll say, Emma, could you write that down and we'll pick it up at the end, because I know what content we need to get through. So one of the 7 habits is beginning with the end in mind. So let's do that. So what do we want to get out of this? We've already talked about the 7 habits. And if there was one book you wanted to read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I have got an abridged version of it, which I created myself, whatever it was, 25, 30 years ago. If you'd like a copy of that, my email is at the end. I'm more than happy to send it to you. And this is about preparation. So you can understand more about yourself, how you can sell yourself, how you can look for jobs, how you can sell yourself through that CV, through an interview. It's about being noticed. I've got a slide that talks about the marketplace. Emma and I again were saying the marketplace has gone mad and was completely different to where it was 2 years ago. And there's lots of skills here. I can't possibly do justice to this whole process in the time that I have. The idea is giving you a taster. And at each stage of the process, that planning is so important. And I always use the analogy of decorating a room. If you want to decorate a room, you don't just go and get a tin of paint and start slapping it on the walls. You need to rub the walls down. You need to fill in the cracks. All of that preparation, if you do that properly, then you're going to perform much better. The room is going to look much nicer. I didn't know, Plus ça change, plus ça même chose is not just to give you the opportunity to hear my wonderful French accent, but as things change, nothing remains the same. Or as things do change, you realise that it is as it ever was. And from that perspective, employers always want to know 3 things. They want to know, can you do the job that I'm asking you to do? They want to know, will you do the job? And they want to know, will you fit in with the team and organisation? So the can bit is, do you have the ability to do it? The will bit is, do you have the motivation? And will you fit in is, are you the right type of person that's going to thrive in the organisation, build your career, help them make money, whatever it happens to be. And in order to do that, your job is quite simple, though it's not, is provide enough solid information for them to say, yes, yeah, that person can do the job, they want to do the job, and I think they'll fit in. And so what I'm trying to do is increase your self-awareness on all of those 3 things. And as I said, you may have heard this before, but as DeAndre Hopkins said, repetition makes perfect. And with all of my webinars, it is about self-awareness. It's about perhaps changing your attitude, perhaps, And it's about taking action. The other thing is I can't afford, and I don't make assumptions. I do, and then I find that I hate the expression, so I'm not going to say it, but you probably know what it is. But we shouldn't make assumptions on anything, and it's easy to jump to conclusions. So let me show you this video.
Yeah, come on. This has should figure out Saturday, so I can be able to go on tomorrow.
Daddy's going to be so excited.
Oh. That killed him.
Paging Dr. Palmer, Dr. Barbara Palmer, dial 452.
Oh.
Look at the cute dog.
So just a genius marketing, genius advertising. But the point is that it's very easy for us to jump to conclusions. And that's actually aligned to one of the habits. I'll tell you what that is when we get onto it. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of boxes that we want to tick. We want to find the right company, but we also want to get the right job for us. But then we want to work for an inspirational manager. And then we want to work in a team that we're going to really have some fun with. And then we want to make sure it's in the right location. And there's probably a number of other things that is specific and personal to you. So in other words, there's an awful lot of things there that we want to kind of tick the boxes, and it's not always possible to do that. So the things I would encourage you to do is to kind of prioritize what are the things that are most important to you. So from those things there, I'd encourage you to write down all of those targets and then think about what's the most important thing for me. And we can use the 7 habits as a roadmap to answer a number of those questions. And at the beginning of the journey, we might be a bit confused, where do we start? And at the end of the day, we want to have some action. So we always start at the beginning. And the beginning of the 7 habits, interestingly, is not beginning with the end in mind. It's actually habit number 1 is being in the right frame of mind. And I'll talk about that shortly in a bit more detail. But being in the right frame of mind is finding a job in itself. Habit number 2 is beginning with the end in mind. And so that end in mind is I need to have a job search strategy because I need to know what is it that I'm actually trying to achieve. If I don't know that, how do I know I'm moving in the right direction? How do I know if I've been successful? Habit number 3 is putting first things first, because there's loads to do. If you've got the company and the job and the manager, in other words, how do I prioritize what's important to me? And from that perspective, how do I sell myself? How do I sell myself in writing? Because that's the first part of the process. And then how do I sell myself when I'm going to be talking to somebody? Habit number 4 is called think win-win. So that's about having something that you want and something that they want. It's about making the right choices, and they need to be in balance. Habit number 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. So I talk here about the art and science of interviewing, but it's understanding what do they want from me, not to be understood. I'm going to tell them all about me, because telling them all about you may not be what they want to hear. Habit number 6 is called Synergize, which is actually a Greek word, which means literally working with others. So using all of the resources, the people, the network that you have around you. And finally, habit number 7 is called Sharpen the Saw, taking the time out to recognize we use this as a learning experience and we need that continuity. One of the things we absolutely realized at the beginning of the pandemic is our routine had been completely destroyed. We were used to getting up, normally early, getting dressed, eating, going on the train, getting in the car, going to work, and the reverse. And all of that went away. So we had to create a different routine. So how do we have a routine that's going to ensure that we make finding a job a job? Now, because of time, I've only got time to look at these habits today. So let's start with the first one, which being proactive, being in the right frame of mind. And the question that I would always ask, and Emma and I were talking about this before, is what's happening in the economy? And we know that this changes on a frequent basis. And I've got some quotes here. They're a little bit old. Yeah, they're old. I like October. That isn't old in the grand scheme of things, but in this world, maybe it is. But it's relevant today. The number of job vacancies in the UK has hit a record high. It's continued to do so. In the FT, UK job vacancies hit a record 1.1 million as labour market tightens. Official show openings matched or exceeded pre-pandemic levels in all sectors. And the Office for National Statistics said our latest labour force survey estimates for September to November 2021 show a continuing recovery in the labour market. Hooray, that's great news, with a quarterly increase in the employment rate, while the unemployment rate decreased. So that's the kind of the generic, that's what's happening in the UK at the moment. But the question is, and we can have our first reaction is, how well do you know your job market? I don't know what sectors you're in, but have you done the research? Have you thought about who am I competing with? Is there more supply than demand? Is there more demand than supply? So Emma, I can't see what people are doing, but if you think, yeah, I know it really well, then clap your hands. If you know it quite well, have that laughing face. If you don't know, that expression. Again, just gives us a feel. Any reactions, Emma?
General feeling is that people are putting their hands up. Is putting your hands up the same as a really well clap?
It's fine. I mean, it's I just, all I really care about with this is that people are thinking about it. So if you know it really well, you need to continue to know it really well because it changes very quickly. If you know it quite well or you don't know, the point is that you need to do your research. You need to know what's going on. That's all. It's just a bit of fun. And with some people, when I talk to my clients, they might have to do what is called a paradigm shift. They need to change their frame of mind. This is just illustrative of all the things that are going on in our heads at the same time. So we need to think, we've already talked about the company and the role and the team, etc. You need to think about, okay, so what knowledge, skills and experience do I have to do the job and which don't I have? And I need to think about, am I applying for the right job or can I grow into that role? Interviews and assessments. When was the last time I had an interview? If you think that, you had an interview a long time ago, believe me, I was talking to a highly experienced recruitment manager the other day. I said, don't make the mistake, Tori, of just thinking that you can, just because you ask lots of questions, you go into an interview and you can think you're on the other side of the fence. It needs practice. The culture, the values, Emma and I were saying, a lot of people who've got jobs in the last 2 years have only got it through interacting over the internet. They haven't actually gone into the office yet. The culture and the values you can see from that. What about the travel, the hybrid, the salary, all sorts of things like that? Is it the right career path for me? Is it the right work? There's so many things there. So again, where do you need to focus? So think about, in terms of your journey, what are the things that you need to focus on and you make them a priority? And being proactive is about taking responsibility for our choices. When we had COVID, people decided whether they were going to follow the rules or not. People decided whether they were going to have the vaccine or not. All sorts of things like that. And what I encourage people to do, and what Covey talks about, is this circle of influence. What can I do? Where do I have control over my life? Something happens like COVID, or I lost my job, or I need to earn more money or whatever. How do I respond to that in a positive way? So these people, you can hear them because they have this can-do language. They take actions. They don't just write it down. They do something about it. In other words, they look at themselves and say, I want to be a victor of my life. Now, other people choose to live in what we call the circle of concern. These are things that we care about, but actually we can't do anything about. So I'm not going to get political, but if we look at Boris Johnson, we will have a view on him. We can't do anything about it. Yeah. With COVID, we can do something about it, but we personally can't stop it. But we can decide to put masks on, to have social distancing, all sorts of things like that. The people who live in that circle of concern, they do little about it. They blame people. They're very negative. When there's something that needs to be done, they say, oh, do I have to? The positive person, yeah, absolutely. It's going to be hard, but let's give it a go. The people who live in their circle of concern are the victims. So you have that choice. And all I can advise you to do is make that circle of influence as large as possible and the circle of concern as small as possible. So let's choose to adopt a positive mindset. So, for example, I want to leave my current job. So what do? Sit and bitch about it? Or do you then do something positive? I'm going to invest time in researching. What's a better job for me to do? Am I paid actually a very good rate? Is there somewhere else I could utilize my skills better? What do I need to do to find another opportunity? I enjoy my time here, but I'm not progressing. So what do? Bitch about it to my friends and colleagues, or do I talk to my line manager about it, or find a company that recognizes my skills, or get some feedback and say, actually, where is there a gap? How can I learn and develop and grow? I know what career I want, but the market is tough. We know the market is tough in a way that there's lots of people competing, for lots and lots of jobs. In fact, there aren't enough people in many areas. Do I need to think about maybe doing something different at my time of life? Or do I carry on with where I am until I get what I want? Again, it's that choice. So let me ask you again for reaction, honest reaction. We don't care who said it. It doesn't matter. It's for you to think about. Do you tend to be that positive person who tends to live in that circle of influence? If so, clap. If it's the circle of concern, that surprise face. So again, Emma, it's as scientific as we're going to get, but just to feel like it doesn't matter what you say, you know yourself what you've put. And if you tend to live in the circle of influence, how can you continue to do so? If you're in that circle of concern, what can you do to come out of it?
Looks like we've got a very positive lot here.
Love it.
Which is good news.
Which is lovely. The key thing there, as I said, is how do I continue with it? Because bad things happen. My business is, you can see, peak performance and potential. Look at the bottom right. Peaks, yeah, it's going fantastically well. Troughs, oh my God, why is this happening to me? We live through both through the course of our lives. How do I get back to that peak is the important thing.
Could I make a comment there, Simon?
Yeah.
We talk to so many candidates who are not as positive as you lot. And if you are in the circle of concern and having a hard time, please do let us know, because we've got lots of people who can help. Simon among many, but we talk to a lot of business coaches and mentors. So if you're having a really down time and you can't drag yourself out of it, please also make contact, because we can help.
Really, absolutely brilliant point to make. Don't just sit, you're never on your own. There are people out there like me, like Emma, flexibility is there to help. So let me show you another video about whose paradigm needs shifting.
Amy, it says you are trained in technology. That's very good. Are you adept at Excel?
No,
PowerPoint?
no,
Publisher?
not really.
Exactly in what area of technology are you proficient?
Snapchat, Pinterest, Instagram, Vine, Twitter, the big ones.
I'm surprised you didn't say Facebook.
That's for old people, like my parents. That's funny.
Well, Amy, when you're working for me, you have to have those kind of research skills, because I'll send you things for you to comb through and get the answers and send them to me. So for that, you got to be really good at technology.
For stuff like that, no problem. I'll just ask Siri.
You'll just ask Siri?
Siri, tell me this, Siri, find me that. We're all good at getting you the answers.
Tell Siri, I want you ready to go at 8 sharp each and every morning.
I don't understand
What don't you understand?
what you just said.
You don't understand be ready to go?
No. You said 8, right?
Yes.
8, like in the morning, 8?
Yes, in the morning.
Yeah. That kind of doesn't work for me. Who gets up at 8?
I do.
I Skype with my French boyfriend in Paris until like 3 in the morning. I don't even get to Starbucks until like 10, where I order my grande chai tea latte, 3 pump skim milk, light water, 2% foam, extra hot, but not too hot. So if it's okay, I work best in the morning at 10:45.
Wow. Amy, I don't think we're going to be a good fit.
Why are you so negative? I can sense your hostilities, and right now I am not feeling very safe. I've been here for over 5 minutes, and the only nice thing you have said to me was nice resume, which I typed all night for this meeting with you. You've given me no guidance, no validation, no encouragement, no supervision. Is there an HR director somewhere?
HR director?
Yes, I need to speak to someone. I may have to take off today as a mental health day.
Take the day off. Amy, look at me. You don't work here.
Are you firing me?
Okay, yes.
There we go. There we go. So,
Simon, I've got a question that's actually quite relevant to that. Lucy has asked, how do you stand out amongst a lot of applicants? Obviously not like that.
This is, well, what's interesting about that, and I talk about, I'm beginning to talk about diversity, inclusion, and belonging, which is again, for me, I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1961. There are up to 5 generations in the workplace at the moment. And what it was showing, and it was beautifully done, is that there is a generation gap. And where do we kind of find that way? I found out a long time ago, if I went back into the workplace, I will be working for people who are considerably younger than me, that have different values, different cultures, different ways of thinking. And my kids are they're in their 30s. My God, my son's 36 next week. That's crazy. We're different. My nieces and nephews are way younger than that. They're like 13 and 14. How do we stand out, and how do we then understand how we all think differently is a really interesting, but a massive question to ask. So it's actually a really good question to ask, because we kind of think we're right because they're the values we were brought up with, but there's lots of things that have changed in life as well. How do we adapt to those? So great question. Keep them coming. Beginning with the end in mind, habit number 2. And this is about understanding, actually, as our purpose. Why am I doing this? What's my job search strategy? Because we need to know what our end game is, because if we know that, it will guide us towards that. And we need to be prepared to do that. So you need to ask yourself a series of questions. What are your outcomes? What are your results? Do I want to work in the same industry? Do I want to explore what I've always done? Or do I want to do something different? So 3.5 years ago, I was running a recruitment function for a large legal firm. And my boss said to me, not too much time developing your people. Let me just think. He said that. Let me sink in, right? Far too much time developing your people. And we were really successful. And his end in mind was to manage the financial side of the recruitment process, because that's what he was interested in, the money, the numbers, whereas I was interested in the people. And we decided at that point that I didn't want to work there anymore. And we parted nicely, and it gave me the opportunity to set up my own business again, my own coaching and leadership development business. So that gave me the opportunity. I didn't want to work for somebody like that. So you need to ask yourself that question. Then the other questions is, there's so much more choice now. And when I started work, I said back in 1983, it was full time. That's what you did. You had some part time. I worked for Waitrose in North London, and we had some part timers working on the tills. But nowadays, there's temporary, there's short term, there's internships. There's so much more choice. What is it that you want? You need to know what it is. So in other words, you have the opportunity to think about and reassess where do I want to go to? Where have I been? How am I going to get there? So let me ask you another question for a reaction. Are you thinking of moving either those things, the job or the company or the industry, or maybe a manager or whatever, within the next 6 months? Again, apologies, I don't know your personal situations. I don't know whether you're on here because you are looking for work because you don't have work, or whether you are in a job but you're thinking of moving.
We've got a couple of people with their hands up. Nina, Beth and Kate, have you got is that a yes, you're thinking of moving, or is that a question? If it's a question, do you want to pop it in the chat? And if it's a reaction, it's a yes, I believe that you're moving on or thinking about moving on. if you're stuck on the reactions, there with the smiley face and the hand up, if you drop down on that, you've got a hand, and then you've got all sorts of emojis that you can use and play with to react to Simon, and it's in the top toolbar if you haven't found it yet.
And as I said, it's just a bit of fun. It's just, again, the most important thing is, what are you thinking about? I just want you to think. So there's what's great is there are lots of resources available to us. So if you're interested in finding out more about yourself, if you want to write down Find My Why, it is very lengthy. There are 96 statements. I've done it. That's a copy of my report, which you can't see. It's really, really interesting. Because we talk in interviews, we talk about, can you describe yourself? What are you best at doing? What don't you like doing? What are your weaknesses? We call them areas for development and improvement. If you want to do that, make a note of that. Something that's a bit more simple, but on Glassdoor, another really great site to go for. If you want to find what people have said about organizations, go on to Glassdoor, because people put on comments about what they think of it. Of course, with these things, they tend to put the negative things, so you need to take it in context. But there's a nice, simple 10 questions to find out your personality, fit, and lifestyle. Again, a little bit more complicated, and you have to pay for this one. But if you're looking at talent strengths, it can give you a lot more detail. There are thousands of jobs. I've always done this. There are so many jobs out there. If you want to do something different, gives you an opportunity just to take the time to think differently. And for those of you who are into your Myers-Briggs personality test, career test to align the two together. So these are just some resources. There's lots and lots out there. They're the ones I'm just suggesting. You can just do a Google search and be inundated. But have a look at those if you want to sort of delve into, if you need to think more about what you want to do and who you are. And of course, the trick is, where do we find these things? And as I said, there's lots of technology and people. And so this comes back to our research. What's happening? What's the current status? For the jobs that I want to go for, are there lots of people or aren't there many? That gives you your market worth. We have job boards, which are great. Things like Total Job Change, there's lots of them. You can go on there, you can do searches and find out in your area for those types of jobs. You can upload your CV. People will then search for those CVs, and hopefully you come up and they'll give you a call. Then there are agencies. The agencies are great. Talk to those people at the agencies. They will tell you what's happening in your marketplace. You've just got, there's so many of them. I've just got some that I work with on a regular basis. And then we have this brilliant machine called Indeed, very clever, because what it does is aggregates all job listings. So if you want to be, say in my case, I want to be a recruitment director, I put it in there, it pulls recruitment director from all of those job boards and companies that put it out there, and it all goes into one place. Again, you can upload your CV there. And then, of course, it's specific to your industry. We do still have newspapers. Maybe they're electronic or maybe they're not. You've got journals. There's all sorts of resources out there for you to ask the question. And finally, and most importantly, is your network. There are people out there. There's Emma, there's Flexibility Matters, there's your colleagues, there's LinkedIn, there's organizations that you work for. Talk to those people, create a support group, talk to them about what they think of you, or they think of your prospects. Listen to them. You then choose through your circle of influence to look at it positively, and it will help to shape things that you want to do. So let me ask you the question, how comfortable are you? Just going to go whoops up there. And I've asked the question, but I've got to put the emojis in, which means I'm just asking you the question. Think about how comfortable you are networking. Some people are really good at it, and some people find it really challenging. But again, it's something, there's a lot of things there we can talk about in more detail if you so choose. Oh, there we have any questions. So that I did put it up at every 2. So if you've got any questions, either please ask it now or pop it into the chat.
Hazel's got a good one about being 50 and whether it's an issue. I say absolutely not. But Simon, you've probably got a different spin on it.
Yeah, well,
that's because I'm 50 and I don't feel it, and I've got lots to give yet.
Yeah, Emma, I'm 60 and I really don't feel it at all. And of course we have age legislation. So we have the 2010 legislation, the protected characteristics. So we know that you're not allowed to discriminate against somebody because of age. I think if it's an issue, what you can do now is just not put dates on your CV. So, and there's been lots of experiments with this, whether it's race or whether it's gender or whether it's age. So what people do is they take away data that can identify you in a certain way if you are concerned about that. So if that is the case, my advice would be is don't put any dates on your CV and let them look at the skills, the knowledge and experience that you have and determine whether you're a fit from that, as opposed to I was born in 1961, I graduated in 1983 or whatever it was, because you can work it out from there.
I've also found a site recently that you might have seen on Facebook or Instagram if you go on there, called Restless, which is particularly dedicated to 50+ job seekers. I think it's quite London centric from what I saw of it, but I think it's a great idea. But also, to go off on another tangent, there is a massive skills shortage in Sussex and the southeast. And there are many government grants about trying to keep people who are over 50 in work. So it's worth exploring all options, but Restless might be a good place to start. And there are a number of organisations. I think the one that I know of is called Mature Job Seekers. I'll find it and send it to you, because there's a lot of support.
Yeah, it's great. Right.
Age comes with a wealth of experience. I agree, Julie. Dates are tricky if applications are online and they ask, oh, do you know what, Sam? Application forms online are just tricky, full stop. It's a really rubbish way of recruiting, but it's also a really rubbish way of getting rid of people, because unless your profile fits the bots and the algorithms, it's really tricky to get through. Would you agree, Simon?
Totally, and we're going to be talking about that. That's a lovely segue to the next session.
Thank you, Sam. You were obviously primed.
Putting first things first, and the priority is how do we sell ourselves. So this is what it's about. And the first thing I say to my clients is you need to know what to look for. And again, we have a lot of information out there. So we have the company website, which will have a wealth of information, both written words and videos. So there's visual stuff as well. And of course, we've got the job description. Don't worry, you can't see that. It's not deliberate, but it's just an example of a job description, happens to be from Legal & General, nothing more than that. And what I say to my clients is look for the clues. Write down the key words. What do they say about themselves? The data, any jargon. That's the key thing. That's the most important thing. So I'm just highlighting some boxes there. Again, you can't see it, so my apologies. It says helping our customers. So, I help our customers. Actually, I call them clients, but they're the same kind of thing. Flexibility and open-minded. Yeah, I'm very flexible. I'm very open-minded. Adapt with their customers. Well, I'm very adaptable. So again, the clues are there. So make a note of them. And you need to refer to these things throughout the process. We just talked about the CV and the application form, the cover letter, there's the application form, and in the interview. Seeking first to understand is habit number 5. We're going to talk about it shortly in the terms of the interview, but it's not about what you want to say initially. It's about what do they say about themselves, understanding them. So look at the clues in front of you. How does it help you to answer? Where are you now? I'm very customer focused. I want to do that. Where do you want to get to? Well, I want to do more of that, or I want to do less of it. And how am I going to get there? That's the trick. And so what I ask my clients to do is create a quadrant. There are 4 of them, and they're divided into 4, hence the word quadrant. And we're going to look at 2 of them today. The first one is the research. So it's like when you were doing an essay or doing revision at school or university or whatever, there's masses of information out there. We want to kind of boil it down. So put into the top left up to 10 bullet points about what they say about the company, then about what they say about the people, what they say about the role, and then something that's relevant for you, which is why I call it other. And if you think about it, if you have up to 10 bullet points in each one, you've got 40 facts and figures that they say about themselves. That's a lot of information in itself. You maybe want to have 5, so you've got 20, but have any more, you're kind of drowning. What are the key things that they say about themselves that help you to describe who they are as a company, the type of people that work there, the role, the job that they're offering, and something that, again, will be relevant for you.
I've got a question from Alan that might be of interest to this particular slide. Simon, he's saying that we've got lots of transferable skills by the time we're 50, but what happens when you want to change direction and you don't 100% fit?
Love it. Brilliant question. We will come on to that. in not the next slide, but the slide after that. But very good question, because it is very relevant. Let me just answer it now, because it's not fair. What we have are two types of CVs. We have the chronological CV, which by definition gives us the history of the jobs that we've done. And then we have what is called the functional CV, and that's the bit that Alan will be looking at. How can I pull out the relevant skills that I've got that I believe will fit into another organization for another type of role? So you take them away for, HR manager, recruitment manager, all that kind of stuff. And let's say I want to go into customer service. Well, what are the skills as an HR manager, recruitment manager that I can pull out? Listening skills, influencing, customer service, whatever those things are, and put them in a list and say, these are the skills, and you want to put that up front in your CV. So we will come on to that, but I might tell you now. So the quadrant number 1 is about what they say about themselves. The next bit is, okay, given what they've said about the company, the people, the role, and other, how can I then think about examples of where I have demonstrated what they are looking for? What are the knowledge, skills, and experience? The companies that I've worked that are similar, the types of people with the values that they have are similar to mine, the type of role that we've done that is similar to that, etc. So one is the factual, and this one is now building up a library, if you will, of those stories, those examples, those case studies where you need to demonstrate that you have done what they are looking for, if that makes sense. And if you have like 10 in each one, you've got 40 examples, and of course they can overlap. That's a lot, that's too many. So I'm saying no more than 10, but it helps you to encapsulate. You can do it on a piece of paper, write it down, or do it electronically, just make it up. It's very simple, but incredibly powerful. So now let's talk about the CV, because we now have responsibility. We're now saying, I want to find a job, I want to be positive. The first thing I talk about is never about the CV. We need to do our research first before we do the CV. And of course, we know a CV, it is your marketing document. Alan said, I've got 50 years. Yeah, I could write an autobiography. It's not an autobiography. I've got 60 years and my CV is 2 pages long. And then we've got the chronological and we've got the functional, which I talked about. So again, we can spend hours talking about this. So let me give you some key do's and don'ts. You need to have a master CV. The master CV can be as long as you like, because it doesn't matter, because you're not going to send that to anyone, but it has everything that you want on there. But then what you need to do is you need to have a specific CV for every job application, because when somebody like me reads that CV, I want to say, Alan, I know why you've applied for this job. It's because I can see that you're reflecting back the things that I'm looking for. And I'm going to say, great, I want to bring you in for an interview, but no more than 2 pages. I will not read more than 2 pages. If we have the words that we have on the first quadrant, then you're talking to that person, and that's what you want. So you need to make sure that you've done your research and you put the words on there. It needs to make sense. Are there any gaps, or the chronological stuff and all that kind of stuff? Make sure your first page is the one that you really are selling. These people, especially in this market, they've got so many applications, they don't have the time. The first page is the most important page, okay? So what you really want to sell, put it on that first page. But then you need to do 2 things. You need to qualify it. You need to back it up by putting on the skills, the experience, unique selling points that you've got from your research. But remember, anything you put on there, somebody like me is going to say, okay, Emma, can you give me an example of where you said on your CV that you managed a team of 50 people, and you're thinking, oh my God, I didn't do that. I just did that because I wanted to get to the interview. It's not going to work. You will be found out. The other thing is to quantify. We need to know if you've managed a team, 50 people, whoa, that's quite impressive. I managed a team of 2. That's fine, but help us to understand how much budget did you have responsibility? What results did you get? It gives us the context as well as the content. It needs to look good, get somebody else to check it for you because you go word blind. And Emma already mentioned, it needs to be searchable, because so many things down now is what we call parsing, when something electronic will read for the words. That's why you do the research. And they'll say, yes pile, maybe pile, no pile. We want to get on the yes pile. That's what we want to do. I'm just conscious of time. So although I'm going to ask you the question, I'm not going to wait for the response because we've only got 9 minutes left and I've got quite a few things to do. But if you, there's so much information out there. CV Library is as good as any. It is a very good site, gives you templates. Talk to Emma at Flexibility Matters. There's lots of people that can help you to put a CV together. At the end of the day, it's your story, it's your CV. All we can do is give you advice. But when that CV is on the desk in front of an interviewer, you've got to say, yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm proud of that. I can talk about that.
A question for you, Simon. Short-lived jobs, which might look like job hopping, even if it's a redundancy or for whatever reason, should you include them?
Yes, you should, because you'll be found out. Again, in the old days, I can go back that far. If you had short numbers of jobs, exactly as Emma said, job hopping, not interested. The world is no longer like that. In fact, if you don't move quite frequently, people kind of think you're very stale. So if you move frequently within an organization, make it clear, because it shows that you're growing, you're learning, you're developing. If you've moved within organizations, people will want to know that. If it's redundancy, there's nothing to be ashamed of. I've been made redundant 3 times. So what? It's the way of the world. This has been happening for the last 20 years. So people like me, people are looking at this thinking there's nothing to be ashamed of. What we don't like is when you hide something from us, because then that is what makes us suspicious. And if you get to the point, because your whole onboarding process will be going through checking your CV, getting references, etc., that's when we don't want the surprises.
Sunita said, would you mind sharing the grid afterwards, Simon?
Absolutely.
Cool, lovely. And I'm going to answer this. Hazel said, how far should you go back? I agree with Simon wholeheartedly that the first page really has to pack a punch, and maybe those jobs that you did when you were 18 aren't as relevant to what you're getting now. So condense the previous, well, from 18 to maybe 25, 28, 30, depending on, particularly if there's a lot of jobs where you've done very similar stuff, condense them.
Yeah, they're not going to ask. They're not going to ask you questions about it. They're not going to get references on those, so you don't need them. Habit number 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. And this is where I talk about interviewing, because it's an art and it's a science as well. And we need to prepare. So find out what is the interviewer's name if you can. Make it personal as much as you can. Make sure you know where you're going. I mean, if it's virtual, it's so much easier nowadays. I went back for an interview at American Express, and I went to the old building I used to work in, and I didn't realise they had changed buildings. So I was late. I was mortified. Make sure you're there on time. If you're not sure what to wear, mark what you're wearing is great. But if that's out of kilter because it's more casual, look on their website. Look at the photos, the videos. Make sure you review your CV as you would before you go into any exam, any test. You want to do your rehearsals. That's why those quadrants are great, because you can read loads of stuff, but now it's in nice bullet points. It just kind of reinforce. If you've got a telephone or video interview, have the quadrant on your desk. That's the great bit, because you wouldn't take it into a face-to-face interview, but it can just be there and you can have a quick look down and they don't know what's there, and it can remind you. That's really cool. Have a glass of water, quiet room. If you want, have post-it notes just to remind yourself. Smile, look into the camera, whatever those things are. With the video, make sure it works properly. Emma and I were on half an hour early because we were really thinking we've got to make sure this works. It's the same sort of thing. Make sure it's right. And with background, I was just, because this is a new office for me, it's a bedroom we've converted. Does it look professional? If it's a one-to-one panel interview, address each person. If you have psychometrics, which you might have, it's a good way of sifting people out, but tends to be more junior jobs. There's a really good website. Just go onto it. Practical aptitude tests. Free tests there. Fantastic. If you go to an assessment centre, again, more likely with graduates and apprenticeships, go on to assessmentcentrehq.com. Lots and lots of information there that you can go on and find out. Now, the interview is about listening first. Understand what they want before you start having the conversation. It's based on a number of things. It's based on getting evidence. What have you done? It's also based on how you've done it in terms of your past behaviour, because that's the best indicator of your future performance. But it's also about your potential. So please don't be put off. If you don't tick all the boxes, you have potential and you can develop and grow. And if you've got a really good employer, they will say, I can see that you don't have all the skills, but I can see from what you've said and how you've behaved and what you've done that you can grow into those parts of the job. So don't just say, I'm not going to apply for the job because I haven't got it. If you ask me what percentage, I don't know. I think you need to have probably at least 70% of what they're looking for, but the 30% can be that potential. And then when you get the question, listen to it, understand it, and then back up with an answer to give the evidence. For example, this is what I did, how I did it, this is how many, this was the situation. And we're going to talk about how to structure the questions shortly. And you need to build rapport. But that's kind of challenging. If you've got somebody who's a trained interviewer, will try and build rapport with you, but some line managers, they're not. They don't do this for a living, and they might just be very straight-laced. They might not smile, they might not joke. So you try and engage with them, but you need to mirror them as well. You don't always have that control. So in terms of questions, there's lots of different types of questions. There's the open questions, which are the ones that we will often ask. Can you give me an example of where you managed a team of 50 people and what happened? Very open. The closed question is the one-word answer. So I have it here. How long did you work with that client? And the answer is 3.5 years. It's not anything else. It either is or it isn't. Then you get things like situational questions. So what would you do if you were asked to perform a task you've never done before? Oh, that's interesting. Let me think about it. You've got to think on the spot. Or the behavioural question would be, tell me about a time that you had to work closely with someone whose personality was very different from yours. So it's looking at how did you behave in that situation. And then you have the competencies. I think they're very similar to behavioural. Describe a time when you were unable to help a customer as much as they wanted. Now, the key thing here is you need to prepare for all of them. The clue in terms of behaviour and competency will be through your research, coming back to customer focus. If they talk about customers a lot, they're likely to ask you a question of where you have worked with customers. It's not a guarantee, but doing your research will give you an indication of the types of behaviours that they're looking for, and they're the things that they probably ask you about. Now, in terms of structuring your answers, you've got to get the balance right. And I use what is called the WHO model. Some of you may know the STAR model, but I'm going to talk about the WHO. The WHO is what? What did you do? What was the situation? What was the context? The how is explain the behavior. How did you do it? And then the O is for outcome, the result. And so the timings of this is really important. From my perspective as an interviewer, I don't want lots of stuff about the what. I want most of it to be around the how. So how long should you speak for? Well, there's 2 minutes there. So if you split it just roughly, in terms of that proportion, you can see that's how I would advise you to talk. Some context, how did you do it, and then the outcome. And always remember to talk about you. Oh, we did this and we did that. You're thinking about that in your mind's eye, but the important thing is to think about what specifically did you do. And an interviewer will say, okay, Emma, you talked about we, but I'd like to know what you did specifically, and it will bring you back to that. Now, of course, most of our language is, you're hearing it now, but a lot of it is what happens behind the words, the non-verbals, your pace and speed, your expressions, your postures and gestures. And most of our communication is actually through our body language. It's what's going on behind what you say. The tone of voice is important, but the spoken word itself is actually the least important. So in other words, you need to back up what you say with how you're saying it. And trained interviewers like Emma and myself will be looking at you and saying, when you ask a challenging question and somebody goes like that, they're probably being defensive. Or if they're going like that, they're probably maybe not necessarily telling the truth. There's things like that. There's something in it, most definitely, but you could be doing that because it's really cold. So, you know, it's your initial reaction after we've asked you the question. Oh, I'm sharing you a third quadrant. That's good. The third quadrant is all about the questions that you ask. And again, go back to your original research and then don't just say, oh, can you tell me more about the company? Massive question. Where do you want me to start? I read on your website that you're looking at buying some new sites in Manchester. It'd be really interesting to find out why you want to do it, when you can do that, because I've got family in Manchester, is showing that you've done your research and you're specifying it to something in particular. So go back to your quadrants and think of some really interesting questions related to those quadrants rather than the generic ones, which just normally says that you haven't thought of anything. You can prepare that. And in my advice would be, you can take in a notebook with your questions or your quadrant. I think that's perfectly fine, because I don't expect you to remember them. I'd rather you ask me some questions you were really interested in than just make them up on the spot.
Simon, I just want to jump in there. A few people have got to leave now, so please make contact with me later and I will share Simon's details with you so you can communicate with him independently. So thank you for coming in. If you have to leave, just slide off and make contact later. Yeah, my apologies. You can tell I'm very good at listening, but I'm very good at talking as well. And this is only 4 of the habits. It's very difficult for me to stop. The other thing is, Emma, we're recording this so people can have a look at it. It'll be available in the next week. So if you have to go now, there's just a few more slides, then please take a look. I was just thinking we've got to get rid of about half an hour of inane chat beforehand, Simon. Oh, it was inane, was it? Thank you very much. My chat, not yours, obviously. At the end of the day, it's all about preparation. Again, it's just interesting. So they did this survey and they said, okay, what turns employers off the most? Interestingly, the one that they didn't like was when you didn't know what you wanted to do. You didn't know what your ambition was. You didn't have any goals. So we know now we need to prepare for that. The next one was you didn't do any research into the company. Why do you want to work here? Oh, it seems very nice. I'm desperate for a job, you know. No, they want to know what that is. So again, going to the website for clues, doing that preparation, doing those quadrants. The next one was the lack of eye contact and the mumbling. I didn't quite hear what you said. I mean, for an interview, when somebody's talking really quickly and they're talking, and they think, oh my God, what are they saying? I'm trying to take notes. Really difficult. Or they're looking over here and they're just not really interested. Just practicing that is important. In terms of improper dress, so look at what do they look, what, you know, are you going to fit in? Look at the website. And of course, lateness, which again, I fell foul of at American Express, which was really embarrassing, but it's a good story to tell now. Make sure you know where that route is. Make sure that you practiced that route. If you're going, or make sure the technology is working. So have you been guilty of any of those? Well, I have. So I'm going to skip on from that. So at the end of the day, it's about probability. It's about risk. And the market is tough at the moment. So I always say to my clients, if you weren't successful, it's the best quote ever. There is no such thing as failure. There is just a delay in the results. It's only a failure if you don't carry on. So that sharpen the sword, which we're not talking about, this is what it's about. There is no such thing as failure. There's just a delay in the results. So when you don't get the job, first thing, please think about is not what went wrong. Think about what went right. What did you do? What do you need to continue? What can you do differently next time? What do you need to learn about yourself or you need to practice? That's when you go back to your support group or your coach or friends or wherever it is. That's where the patience and perseverance will pay off. You never, ever give up. At the end of the day, if all else fails, you can always do that.
How much do you think you're qualified for this job?
Oh! Stop punching me!
Don't punch me.
Don't touch me!
Not the face. Not the face.
Don't touch me! Stop me out!
And here it is, huh? Get it?
Yes.
I love Genius adverts and marketing, very clever, but I'm sure you wouldn't do that. So let's just wrap this up. Remember, it's about, can you do the job? Will you do the job? And will you fit in? Choose to live in your circle of influence. Say, yeah, I can do that. It's going to be tough, but I'm going to learn and I'm going to do it. Research the company, find out, seeking to understand what are they looking for, and then align them with what I can offer them. Remember, you have potential. Prepare and practice interviewing. Wherever you do it, you need to practice. It makes perfect. Remember, when you're talking to somebody like myself and Emma, the who, because if you give me too much of what you've done, you're boring me. I want to know how you've done it. And be aware of your body language. Again, get somebody to feed that back. Use your support group. There is no such thing as failure. There is just a delay in the result. So at the end of the day, I do 7 habits for all sorts of things. It's about making the habit a habit. And to make these habits a habit, you need to prepare, you need to practice, and you need to persevere. I sent Emma my Super 7s for job seeking. It's just a 1-pager. It talks about all of the habits, and Emma will send that to you afterwards. If you've got any feedback, any comments, any questions, anything, either send me an email or please via Emma. She'll send it on to me. And now if you've got some other questions, any comments, we can stay on for those of you who are here. I'll just leave that on there. Those of you who want to link in with me, if you just put your camera up and put it on the QR code, it will automatically take you through. So I'll leave that for a few seconds because Emma, I can then end this show and then I can see some people.
Okay, if you don't know how to do that on your LinkedIn, just get your camera out and it will do it for you.
Correct.
Cool. Well, we have quite a lot of people that have disappeared, but if there's anyone who'd like to stay and have a chat, then please do for the moment, as we've got Simon here. That grid, okay with you for me to cut and paste it out of the
yes, please,
out of the presentation? Cool, because I think that's a really amazing top tip. So brilliant, Simon, thank you. That was an epic trot through how to do it. So much information there that I think you're all going to have to go home and have a bit of a lie down to think about that. But you can see that Simon really does know his stuff. And, you know, the reason that we work with Simon is that we would like you to make contact with him as well so that he can help you more. You know, we will help as much as we can, but Simon is a professional and that is his job to help get you the right job. We will find you the right job. He will help you get that job. So and we'll do what we can to support you through the process. And I think from Flexibility Matters perspective, we can do much of what Simon has just described there. What you have to consider is the volume of people that we have who we're trying to help. So professionals like Simon can give you the one-to-one that you need for the help. So Simon, what have you got to say that might be useful to people who want to have a one-to-one?
Yeah, so I've seen some people have been asking for email addresses. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. So that handout, that 7 habits for job seekers, when Emma sends that out to you, my email address will be on there. So all of that information will be on there.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to contact me, that's what I do for a living. I do all sorts of things, but that's one thing I love to help people. It's about getting the best out of others. That's why I set up my business. And so what we would do is we will arrange a session. There will be a charge for that. As Emma said, this is my living. And so we'll work on something that habit number 4 is win-win. I want to go for a win-win. Appreciate people's personal situations are different. And it's my time, so I will charge for that, but I appreciate your personal situation. That's something that will be a discussion between ourselves.
And from our perspective, we do everything like these seminars as part of our service to you. And we take a fee like any other recruiter from the businesses that we work with when we get you a job.
I can see Beth has got her hand up. Is that because you want to ask a question or?
You didn't even know you had your hand up, did you, Beth?
Pretty on the spot. Anyone have any questions? Listen, at the end of the day, this is based on my 38 years of experience. Is it the right way of doing things? Is it the most effective? In my opinion, yes, because I've done it to myself many, many times. So I practice what I preach. Am I perfect at it? Absolutely not, because I'm a human being. But I've also helped hundreds and hundreds of clients to help find a job. So, but you just take the advice. You decide what you want to do.
Simon, can I ask a question on behalf of people? If you haven't had an interview for a long time and you're feeling really nervous, have you got any quick techniques on sort of managing those nerves, like breathing techniques or any quick things before you go in?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is, Julie, is that you practice. Now you can do that if you don't know anybody, which may be a situation. Practice in front of the mirror. If get used to talking to somebody. That is the most effective way. And some things which sound really good on paper sound really naff when you say them out loud. When you work for corporates like I have, and you talk about strategy, and you talk about quartiles, and you talk about all that kind of stuff, it's what we talk about when we're in business. But when you say it yourself, it says, would I really say that? So you learn from experience. So the most effective thing before you get to that point is practice with somebody. Let them hear what you're saying and refine it. You're absolutely right, though. Coming back to those post-it notes, I always say smile, because it uplifts you. It's that endorphins. It creates the endorphins. The other, you're absolutely right, is breathing. Look, I'm now aware. I talk very quickly because I'm very passionate and enthusiastic. So I will now slow it down. I'm conscious of my breathing because actually, although it sounds a bit slow, it helps me just to get control over what I'm saying. Another thing is just sitting, being relaxed. You can have your hands all over the place. So I do that when I present, because I do that out here, and just getting yourself in the right. And the final thing I would say is tell yourself how great you are. I'm really shit. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm talking about. They're going to find this out from me. Excuse my language, apologies. Because when you start talking to yourself in a positive way, the law of attraction will attract positive things back to you. The law of affirmation will say, yeah, I do know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I know. I'm good at this. I'm going to give it my best shot. I may not be right for it, but I'll use it as practice. If you're feeling very nervous, I'll use it as a learning experience. So that self-talk is really important. So there's some of the things that I would advise.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Lovely. Well, just quite conscious of time, Simon, yours and everyone else's. But I think that why you didn't? Sam, I'm going to answer that one. It's a nightmare. If people don't give you feedback, it's so hard to know what to progress, what the next stages are. So I think if people aren't prepared to give you feedback when you've been for an interview and you've spent your time researching their company and you get nothing back, do you actually really want to work for that company? I think it's really shabby when you get absolutely nothing back. And I try very hard to get feedback from clients, but they're not always that good at disseminating.
Yeah, can I just add a little bit to that? I take, because I've been on the other side of the fence. The problem is, in the litigious world in which we live, we actually don't like to give feedback because it gives you evidence that you might come back at us and kind of throw some sort of discrimination at us. So actually, it's not worked as it should have done. So that might be the reason. The other thing I always advise my clients to do is write back to them and say, thank you so much for the opportunity. It was really great. I appreciate I wasn't right for this job, but I really love the whole experience I had. If any other jobs come up that you think I'm right for, please bear me in mind. That's what you do.
Nice. Top tips. So, Simon, thank you so much from Flexibility Matters. Thank you on behalf of all our seminar attendees. That was a super useful seminar. Thank you very much. And I think we will have the 7 habits back in a different spin, maybe later in the year, if you would like to join us again. So thank you very much. There will be a recording once I've found out how to edit it, and I will send on the 7 tips and the grid in the meantime. So thank you, Simon. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and we'll see you again on the next one.